Hey, Eric.
Hey, John.
How you doing tonight?
I was like trying to figure what can I say instead of that.
Rut. It's fine. It's fine. If it's a little echoier, it's because I'm in a hotel room.
And I'm in a hotel room
But
down the hall from you.
Not the same hotel room.
No, we reserved that for you and Raj.
Yeah, me and Raj. That was me and Raj. But in the interest of navel gazing at podcast recording, it's easier to record when you're separate so that you have two different channels with two different microphones as opposed to what we did with Raj, which was both on one microphone. And if he and I talked over each other, no fixing that.
Nope. How was this week? We're actually a day early this week because of stuff going on tomorrow night, but yeah. I don't think that'll speed up the editing time.
Yeah, probably not. Let's see. What can I tell you about this weekend? In fact, I tweeted out a picture. I made a whole bunch of fondant for my bees last weekend. Saturday, I went and I checked. I was like, I knew I was leaving Sunday night. I didn't want to leave them for a week if I was having to feed them. And it turned out that they had eaten every bit of the sugar I left in there 2 weeks ago. So I was busy Saturday, but had a concert Saturday night. And then when I got home, which was about 10:30 or something like that, I think it was, I was like, okay, I need to make some fondant so that it could cool for Sunday. And so I think I did 7 pie tins worth of sugar. It was 10 pounds worth of sugar. So it should stand them over, hopefully until they're getting their own darn sugar or nectar.
Dang lazy bees.
Dang lazy bees. Yeah. Come on, get to work. Okay. There's nothing blooming yet. So now still alive. I'm babying them along.
Well done. I caught that. Well done.
I'm a punny guy. It's not very funny. But I amuse myself in my own head, which is at the end of the day probably all that matters. How about you? Do you have a good weekend? You said you spent some time programming, I know.
Yeah, I was going to say I did spend a lot of time actually working on an app I have. I think probably 6 months ago, I teased it in an episode that, hey, I was working on something cool I'll tell you about eventually, and I guess now is eventually.
Ooh, is now eventually? All right.
I'm going to go with
Eric,
now is eventually.
What is this?
So in the effort to try to share little clips of our podcast on social media, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was an app where you could just grab a podcast episode, pull a tiny snippet of audio to save and store and either share on social media, or if there was a really cool little short story out of a larger podcast I wanted to save off to remember, that I could do that. And I couldn't find an app anywhere that did that.
Okay.
So, of course, if you're a developer, you just build the app. So I started building an app to do that. So I think I got about to beta test quality. Let's call it alpha test quality. And then I got stuck because I could never quite figure out the best way to edit or to clip the podcast. You know, there's plenty of examples.
How to choose the range.
Yeah, how to choose that range and narrow it to an exact. I mean, there's plenty of examples how QuickTime and others trim video, but my idea is to trim the audio and then overlay some text about the episode and where this location is in the episode, and then like the cover art for the podcast, and create a little video with just audio, no moving video, but just the audio. So that was my idea, and so I think I've got to the point where I'm willing to talk about that for two reasons. Number one,
it works.
This will encourage me to actually work on it more now that I've said it out loud, and I can't just let it kind of quietly die.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and two, it's close enough. I could actually use some feedback. So if you are interested, let me know, and we'll get you hooked up. It's for iOS only, Apple devices only. So sorry, Android people. But yeah.
Are you telling people what the name is?
The name is Cast Snip. Trying to find a good name anymore with the website and the URL is hard, but I thought Cast Snip sounded kind of cool because it's a podcast and I'm taking a snip and it's kind of like catnip.
Exactly.
So Cast Snip. So that's the idea. So if you want to be a beta tester, let me know.
Cool. And I have it on my phone. We'll have to maybe even with this episode we'll be able to try sharing one or two on Twitter.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And it works with
happens.
Apple's share sheet. So anything that you can share video with on an Apple share sheet, you should be able to use.
Right.
So, all right. Should we slide into some follow up?
How about some follow up? So well done, by the way. That I think that's cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right. It looks like you put a bunch of stuff in follow up because last week we talked about. Let's see. When we recorded, Apple had just revoked Facebook's enterprise development certificate.
Shortly thereafter, within hours, they had unrevoked. Is that revoked?
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to
gave them their certificate back. They
unrevoked it.
Yeah, they unrevoked their certificate, and Facebook was back. And so, as I was thinking about this, I came to at least a mental conclusion that was uncomfortable for me because I was kind of finding myself siding a little bit with Facebook. Which,
heck, what?
I know.
I know. Who are you, and why are you talking to me?
So, part of me, Facebook's and more of it was the reporting of the story, and not so much what Facebook did. I still think what Facebook did and how they did it is unacceptable
and totally against the terms of service.
Yeah, but they didn't try to hide. The article seemed to make it sound like this was all sneaky, no one knew. Facebook, it kind of like Facebook said, look, we called it the Facebook research app. We didn't hide it. We told them, I'm sure they sent all sorts of terms of services. We paid these people for it, just kind of like you can think of the Nielsen ratings. Did you ever, get the here's a dollar bill that we used to get, I got that 2 or 3 times in my life, a dollar bill in the mail or like quarters stuck taped to a sheet saying, please fill out what TV shows you watch for the week and mail it back to us. So they were paying people for this. And part of me was like, this had to be an open secret that these companies, because it wasn't after the Facebook story broke, we found out Google was doing it and other companies were doing it as well. Yeah. So this had to be something Apple knew about. It's hard for me to believe that Apple didn't know this was happening at all. I mean, somebody had to know. Maybe, things get lost in huge companies, but until an article came out kind of exposing, if that's the right word to put it,
right?
It was kind of don't say, I won't do anything.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah, something along those lines. And so
I guess an analogy might be that I think with U.S. copyright law, like you can have a copyright, but if you don't enforce your copyright, you can't later decide to selectively enforce it, right?
Right.
You can't let it slide for 5 years, and then when somebody you really don't want to kind of wake up and go, oh wait, that's ours. So.
Right.
I mean, I can sort of see that argument that it should have been done proactively.
Right.
But I mean, I guess what would be nice would be evidence or admission that it was kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge allowed or not looked at for a period of time.
Right. It was, we'll look the other way.
It's hard to imagine that, especially since Google and others were as well. How did that escape notice? Because Apple's pretty plugged into what happens on their devices.
Yeah. And so now let me go back to my regularly scheduled poor opinion of Facebook.
Okay, you're allowed.
So one of the follow-up articles, which we'll link, is that has the hey, they got their certificate back, reports on an apparently leaked memo from Facebook to their employees that says, our relationship with Apple is really important. Many of us use Apple products at work every day, and we rely on iOS for many of our employee apps, so we wouldn't put that relationship at any risk intentionally. And frankly, I'm not buying that, because for years I was a gatekeeper for the enterprise certs at a company, and I was 100% aware of having those enterprise certs revoked and what it could mean and why they could be revoked.
What the ramifications would be.
Yeah, what the ramifications would be, and
what the rules of the road.
Yeah, exactly. Because when engineers are encouraged, and people are encouraged to innovate on things and come up with ideas to build apps, and in the early days of iOS, when it started to come out with the MDM program and being able to use enterprise certs, mm-hmm. they came up with all sorts of ideas and say, hey, we can do all these cool things, and some of them were, okay, that would be acceptable. Others would get up to that gray line. And I knew exactly where that, or at least I felt like I knew exactly where the line was, that you can get this close to the line before Apple's going to start.
But don't take that last step.
Exactly. Here's where you go over the line. And using the enterprise cert to distribute apps and bypass the App Store or outside the App Store was enterprise. So far over that line that, Yeah. So anyways,
it's hard
that's
to
my,
imagine.
It had, everybody involved, Apple, Facebook, Google, everyone had to be perfectly aware of where that line was and chose to ignore it.
Yeah.
Or look the other way. So There's my follow-up. There's my...
All right.
I'm going to feel slightly bad for Facebook and then not bad for them at all.
Yeah. I don't think I'll go quite as far with you. But I kind of thought it was funny when Google came out and they were like, we did it too, and we're not doing it anymore, I promise.
Please don't revoke our certs. Dang it, you've revoked our cert. Can we have it back, please?
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, shall we jump into topics?
Yeah. My topic this week is something I've avoided for the last little bit, but let's talk cryptocurrencies again.
Oh, hey. I thought you had a New Year's resolution. You weren't going to talk cryptocurrencies.
This one was just too good, though. Because, when you talk about the zealots in the cryptocurrency space, it's all about we don't need no regulation. And then you get stories like this one where there's a exchange in Canada, apparently a very popular one, where a story comes out saying the CEO has passed away in India, and he was the only one with access to the keys for the cold wallets. And cold wallets are ones that are not connected to anything. They're usually stored somewhere else that's not connected anywhere, so you can't move money in and out of them. They're kind of segregated from, I guess, what people would refer to as hot wallets, where you can move money in and out and move cryptocurrency in and out. So he was the only one, apparently, who had the keys, and he passed away. And then they got a hold of his laptop, which happens to be where the keys were, which right there tells number 2, one person holds the keys and they're on a laptop. This does not sound like and this was not a small amount. It was like $100+ million worth of cryptocurrency. So then somebody notices, hey, some of the wallets that they said were frozen or inaccessible because we don't have the keys for them anymore started to have money moved out of them. And then they filed for protection. And then there's rumors going around that he hasn't really passed away. He's faked his death. And then there's another rumor about how the name of the CEO isn't really his real name. It's somebody else's name. And it's kind of an open ha-ha secret among the cryptocurrency underground that
really?
His real name is something else. Or maybe one of the big one of the people at the company. Maybe that was it. But anyway, so these are the kind of things. And then for proof, they find a death certificate for this person. That one surfaces. So there's just rumors all over the place. And at some point, we'll kind of get down to what the actual truth is of the matter. But my thing there from a security perspective is, who are you trusting your money with? Whether you're putting it in Bitcoin or a bank, what kind of what kind of organization are you sharing your assets with? Someone, a company that only has private keys stored on a laptop that a guy takes on a trip with him.
Insane.
The laptop crashes. These keys are not passwords in the sense that, okay, I just need to remember my 8-digit, PASS star ORD kind of things. They're
long series of it's a cryptographic identifier.
Right. And so there's just lots of things. This industry is just begging to be regulated, despite the fact that that's kind of the genesis of this, is to try to avoid all the problems, or at least the perceived problems with regulation. So I don't know.
I love that.
And then
Schrödinger CEO. I'm skimming through this thread you're linking here. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I saw the website that you posted.
Yeah.
The how many days since
did you
you've
like
seen
that?
those things? How many days since an accident has happened at work?
Right.
Posters on walls. The website. How many days since a cryptocurrency exchange has lost over 100 million? Had the number 1.
Exactly.
I think it's up to 4 today.
Those single use long URL sites crack me up sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that the FDIC, that is what guarantees your bank or credit union account balances up to, I don't know. It used to be $100,000, and I think it's actually higher now, or at least for investment accounts it might be, is a very good thing.
Yeah.
A very good thing.
Yeah, and there's been some other positives, I think, in the news recently. Some of the big-time cryptocurrency scammers are getting
I saw that.
reasonably decent jail time.
I saw that. The IOTA guy from a year ago.
10 years, I think.
Right.
Or was it 5 or 10 years, something like that?
Right.
So, and I expect there to be more of those as we move out of kind of the wild west of cryptocurrency into, all right, let's try to make this actually function in a society that kind of tries to live by some rule of law.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was my article.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely a big thing this week.
Yeah, Yeah,
Okay.
have more than just a laptop with magic stuff on it. Back it up.
Well,
Do stuff like a real company
like a
should.
disaster recovery should be
Yeah.
a contingency planning. Yeah. Okay.
So much
Drop
wrong
it.
with that.
Drop it.
Yep. Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, so I have one like microscopic thing that I thought I would at least bring up, and then another topic. So the small thing is something I'm just kind of keeping my eye on at the moment because it might affect me, and I'm traveling, so I can't actually fix this at the moment at my place. But this is a Twitter thread that we'll link here, but there is also a link to a thread on the Ubiquiti forums about a vulnerability where, so Ubiquiti is a networking vendor. They have the Amplify as their mesh networking and Edge router. They have like the Edge router and AirMax brands that are kind of prosumer verging into pro hardware for networking. It's kind of like what you would do if you wanted a mesh network like Eero, but you actually wanted to be able to configure things
Right.
behind the scenes. And I have a edge router at my boundary at my edge. And anyway, this vulnerability is that there's an open port to the external network, which I had not noticed before. And so I'm going to be very curious to go home and take
Run
a look
Nmap.
at it. That is 10,001 for port discovery. And it wasn't clear to me in the thread, at least in the early parts of the thread, there were people saying that they had errors on a whole bunch of different versions. And I don't remember what version I'm running of AirOS is their operating system that runs on their routers. But anyway, so it says it's for port discovery, but it's available externally, which is like mind blowing. Why would you in your default config have a open port external? But there's the thread. If you follow the thread down into Ubiquiti and the Ubiquiti forums, Ubiquiti's used by a lot of kind of small ISP operators, and there are there are people in this thread that say they have 10,000 Ubiquiti devices spread throughout. So those would probably be like the person or people, 4 dudes in a van that I get my internet from. That sorry, I say that tongue in cheek, except that there's no tongue in the cheek. It's 4 dudes and maybe they each have a van. But anyway, so
I just have this vision of you, a guy pulling up and saying, "Hey, psst, you want some internet access?"
Well, I do. I'm like, yeah, give me two. So, but anyway, and it's Ubiquiti gear. I know it's Ubiquiti gear from there. So they own the antenna that is, at my edge, and then I just take a tap out of the antenna into my edge router light, and then I control the network from there. And they only support, given the wackiness of my setup, they only support the one plug that comes out of their antenna.
Right.
But anyway, so this is, if you go out here in the forums, there's a whole bunch of debugging. This was first reported a long time ago. Let's see, I'm on page 7 of the thread, and these are posts from October. So this has been present for a while, and it's folks saying, hey, here's 1 second of our log file, for example, here, and there's, I don't know, several hundred hits to port 10,001. So they're clearly being hit externally. So somebody knows how to exploit this. And one of the conjectures, I didn't see like a specific, can this be used for to actually get code running on that box or anything like that? That wasn't clear that there was any possibility there, but it could be used for a weak reflection or amplification attack. So an amplification is when you send, if I send you 1 byte and then you send me back, say 5 bytes, that would be a 1 to 5 amplification. And if I can spoof the packet that I send in with the 1 byte so that you send those 5 bytes, instead of sending them back to me, you send them to a destination of my choosing. That's how you can generate a distributed denial of service attack.
Right.
So, well, it's one of the ways you can achieve a large distributed denial of service attack without you having to source a huge amount of traffic volume. So, anyway, this was supposed to be just a small thing because it's something that I'm keeping an eye on. And when I get home, I've got to go and take a look at my router. And
follow up for next week.
Yeah, probably follow up for next week and see what happens. But there's no patch available yet. And the most recent post from Ubiquiti was a week ago saying, and I quote, "Guys, an update from us on this issue. Blocking port 10,001 at the network perimeter based on our testing prevents this issue from occurring. An attacker is not able to gain control of your network through this issue, and we are working on a permanent fix for an upcoming firmware release." So more info as I get it. So basically validating, here's a remediation. But anyway, that's that. And I guess I picked that mainly because I'm affected by it or potentially affected by it. So its signal got amplified in my head. Okay. My real topic, though, was an article on Krebs that was a follow-up to a previous article that was a few weeks ago. And I seem to remember looking at it at least, but, kind of didn't pop up to the top of my stack. But now it kind of did. So this is a Krebs article about spammers that are exploiting a GoDaddy hole in a DNS registration or name servers. So in particular, the article for Krebs the first time was on, I think, January 22nd, but there's basically a way for an attacker to create a new, fresh spam, basically, GoDaddy account, and then take control of a domain that was previously registered with GoDaddy, but that has been dormant. Now, I'm not looking at the old article, so I should probably have done that. But essentially, in the previous one, the crooks used this to basically get a bunch of sites that they can send email from that would get through mail filters. And in particular, they say they had a massive sextortion and bomb threat spam campaign throughout 2018, dubbed Spammy Bear. So,
which looks very familiar.
Somebody may have been a victim of this. It might be interesting, actually, to look at some of the spam emails that you said you got. When was that you received them?
End of December, first week of January. And I looked at the article that Krebs references. We talked about it on episode 57, Is This the Krusty Krab episode, which I love that episode.
I love that name.
So we talked about it and released on the 12th of January, and it looks like the 12th of July, is that right? Yeah, the 12th of July, Krebs had an article that, if you read the email, is almost exactly the same emails that I was getting in late December, early January this year. So 6 months before I saw it, Krebs had seen it.
Of course he did.
So
I don't remember reading that, although,
It's linked in the article. We'll link to the Krebs thing. So
I'm sure
you can check it out.
So you were one of their potential victims if you had been not smart enough to send them some cryptocurrency. Yes. So evidently, when the January 22nd article came out, GoDaddy went and fixed, quote unquote, 4,000 domains that presumably they had a list that were used, but maybe they didn't actually fix the root cause of the issue, because This latest thing is the same strategy, different set of domains, but distributing GANCrab. So that's
ransomware.
Yes, exactly. And actually, McAfee's done a whole bunch of research. Our ATR team's done a whole bunch of research on GANCrab over the course of the last 6 months or 9 months or something like that. The last while. So, but yeah. So this is a particularly nasty bit. So one of the things I thought was interesting in here was speculation that enough domains had their DNS modified like fast enough that let's see, it said, interesting to note that hundreds and perhaps thousands of domains had their DNS changed within a short period of time. Such a thing is hard to do if you have to log into individual accounts. So maybe GoDaddy doesn't have any throttling or against their presumably they have an API. But GoDaddy says there's been no such breach, so that they're saying their DNS infrastructure wasn't directly compromised. But
how'd all these things get in then?
Well, the initial vulnerability, their bug in GoDaddy, was the ability for somebody to create a junk account, claim a old site or a site that had previously been registered with GoDaddy, and then modify its settings without verification. So, and if those things could be done or automated, I mean, maybe they have an API, maybe they could just do it with a web scraper, that, you could do that relatively quickly. So the last thing I wanted to mention about this was that, No More Ransom got a call out, a semi good call out, maybe not a perfect one, but they had a story at the bottom of the article about some folks that actually got hit with the ransomware. And No More Ransom, which Raj mentioned a couple weeks ago on the episode, and which McAfee has contributed decryptors to a number of. It was called out at the bottom of the Krebs article, which is great. The particular case that they were not able to get their data decrypted for GANCrab, which is sad for them, because what did it say? It said they were being asked to pay $4,000.
Yeah. So the initial sextortion one then switched tacks. I can't say that word. Tacts to start distributing GANCrab as opposed to just trying to convince
right
someone that they've been naughty online.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that's a good article. Go read it, and then maybe read the linked articles that for the previous things. I thought that was a good one. All right. How about something fun? What you got for me?
All right, so something fun. So tonight at dinner, I told you what my something fun was, and then I'm doing something different. So
I was going to say this I do not recognize.
Well, so because this one is a little bit of fun and a little bit of follow up.
Okay.
So it's about the Raspberry Pi.
Look at you.
I have a whole bunch of the Raspberry Pis at home. I love my little Raspberry Pis, and I found an article that basically goes through and lists out what this person believes is wrong with the Raspberry Pi. And one of the things that I was not aware of, it's a great article to read through and just kind of get an alternate opinion of, hey, Raspberry Pis are great for this, but here's some issues. And the one thing that I was not aware of was that the Raspberry Pis actually boot. Well, let me just read this so I don't say this wrong. In the latest Raspberry Pi, there are 6 cores, but only 4 of them are ARM-based cores. Linux runs on the ARM CPU, but you might be surprised to learn that Linux on the device is a second-class citizen. The GPU cores run a real-time OS called ThreadX.
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
we talked about ThreadX. Was it last week?
Last week
on the
Marvel Wi-Fi controllers.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi controllers. That it wasn't a bug in ThreadX, but ThreadX is a very popular. What is it? 6.2 billion devices run ThreadX. I think
Something
it was
like that.
Something like that. So this talks about ThreadX is actually what is underneath Linux, the Linux kernel on Raspberry Pi devices, and ThreadX is not open source. I think the point to this piece was, hey, Raspberry Pis, they talk about how this is open source and enabling a whole bunch of great things to happen for DIY people, which it still is, but the underpinnings of the Raspberry Pi is actually very much closed source and proprietary. So I did not know that it was actually running ThreadX underneath. So I thought that was interesting. And I think the whole article, if you're interested or have used Raspberry Pis for different projects, it's kind of a fun little article, kind of describes some issues with how power works and how to check for power issues, and a number of other just kind of call outs of the different chips and how things are used on the Pi. But even at the end of the article, despite the fact that the author kind of says, here's the things I found wrong with it, I'm still going to use Raspberry Pis because they do great, but he gives some call outs to alternatives to the Raspberry Pi that he believes are a little bit more open sourcey and maybe worth trying out. So that's my something fun today.
Looks like a cool article.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't just skim it while you're chatting, so I'll have to read it. I have to read it once we hang up.
Yeah.
But this looks like a very cool article. All right, this qualifies as actual fun,
This is John approved something fun.
This is John. Yeah, what you need is John approved something fun. My something funs are not necessarily.
Wait. Hold on. Did you just pluralize fun?
Well, I had 2 something funs last week, and yes, can I have 2 this week?
I got to cut you off one of these weeks, but okay.
I swear that this is only a fraction of the fun things that I actually put in the Slack channel.
I know.
But and actually the second one really I only evidently it came out a couple days ago, but I only saw it tonight, and I was like, ooh, I have to say that, and then I was like, oh, but I already have something fun that's like super duper cool. I think it's one of those things that okay. So here's my something fun. This is sorry, I have to actually bring it up. This is a neural network materialized with a 3D printer.
Yeah, we need to leave a long pause in there so that can sink in.
Yeah, let that sink in. With a neural network, with assuming you don't have feedback, but with a neural network, you have neurons that pass information down the chain, and you basically have layers that interact. And so, the neurons are quote unquote neurons are kind of feed into each other from layer to layer to layer to layer. And so this is a quote unquote neural network similar to what you would build in Python, but it materialized with a 3D printer so that you can pass light through it from, one side, like an image, and it will highlight with for recognition. So let me see if I can pull out a sentence. So they're actually calling it a diffractive deep neural network. So it uses the light bouncing from the object itself to identify that object in as little time as it would take for a computer to simply see the object. So there's no processing or anything else. It's simply a series of lenses, essentially. So there's a picture here of a schematic of the optical neural network trying to recognize a number 5. But in this case, the detector would have to only be looking for, a particular thing. But, if you've got a series of lenses that's looking for a particular item, you could materialize it in the physical, and it can be essentially instantaneous, quote unquote, speed of light. Anyway, I just thought this was cool. I hadn't. This kind of blew my mind even thinking about.
Yeah.
Ooh, wait.
I read this article before we started recording to try to prep a little bit, and I still will probably have to read it 2 or 3 more times to really. I don't quite get it, but this is, it's really cool. The pictures make sense, but I don't understand how it works.
Yeah, I mean, there's implications that I certainly haven't thought through. Anyway,
I grasp and understand the context of all the words, but pulling it all together and internalizing that mentally is, I don't quite get it still.
Okay. Well, and maybe I don't get it either. So this could be like a spoof thing. This is seems like a legit site, but maybe I'm falling victim. Okay, so my second something fun, which we then don't have to talk about much, but I need you. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to actually tell me whether this works. So this is, I saw this just literally just before we started recording. Real-time continuous transcription with live transcribe from Google, a free Android service that makes real-world conversations more accessible by capturing conversations in real time, supporting over 70 languages and more than 80% of the world's population. So presumably, you just hold your phone up, somebody talks into it, and you see data coming up. So you have an Android phone, your mission, bring that to work tomorrow, and let's try this out with some of the people in the room that have that speak other languages, which would not be me because I am monolingual, and not even that. I'm probably half lingual.
Well, is this a translator or a transcriber? Because it's called live transcribe.
It captions conversations in real time. So that would be
right, we're having a conversation right now. It could auto caption what we're saying right now, but I don't know. And sorry, I'm looking at the site now, and it all looks like it's going from English to English. It's not translating. It's not live translation, but live transcription. Or is it? Or am I missing a sentence somewhere that says it's actually live translation? Or do I not understand what the term transcribe means?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this. Wouldn't this be exactly like closed captioning, but hopefully closed captioning that doesn't have bizarrely egregious mispronounced words?
Right. So it's not someone speaks in Spanish and it turns it into English. It's someone speaking in English and it actually returns the English in text for someone who is hard of hearing or deaf.
If they support 70 languages, I see what you're saying. You're saying, will it? Yeah. Can you speak in Spanish and I can see it in English?
Can I pick my input language and pick my output language, or does it just support Spanish to Spanish, French to French, German to German?
I'm trying,
as the 70 languages.
I didn't remember noticing this in here, so I don't know. Follow up, my friend. Follow up.
I will, although I won't be able to do it tomorrow because the Android device is at home.
Okay. All right. Well,
this sounds really cool and a really useful.
How many people use Google Translate around the world today?
Exactly.
Right. They are the de facto. To the best of my knowledge, maybe I'm U.S. centric or whatever, but anyway, So this was my. Oh, come on, that has to be my something cool. But I already had the physical instantiation of a neural network. Come on, that has to be my something fun. So I'm sorry, you have to cope with 2 something funs.
All right, but next week,
maybe you'll cut me off next week, but I don't know what's going to happen. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I make no guarantees.
So coming up, we'd also like to announce our new podcast.
Mostly fun.
Yes, thank you. Mostly fun.
Maybe that should be we'll rename this to Mostly Fun. All right, man. Let's call it a night.
All right. Have a good night, John.
All right. Talk to you next week.